Well, I think we've got distance. So I'll start with it and then we'll, is that okay?
You're live. Oh, we're live.
Are we live? Oh, okay. So we're live and ready to go? Okay. Well, good evening. And good evening to those that are present with us this evening, and good evening to those that are watching online, and to those that are going to be watching this at a later time. Welcome. And I just want to say thank you to our fire department for putting this together and for really working diligently to help us better understand where we are. So, as I say, good evening. I'm Mayor Debbie Kling, and I wanted to open this evening and talk a little bit about why we're doing what we're doing. And I am going to take my mask off just for a few minutes. The presentation will last, I'm going to guess, 20 minutes, not very long. Okay. So it won't be a long presentation, but thank you for joining us. So why are we here? You know, one of our goals in the city of Nampa is to ensure that we provide our citizens with the best public safety possible, right? That our responders can provide good service to our people and that we take care of our people. And so with that, with the challenges sometimes we have with funding and budgets, it's a very important time in the history of the city of Nampa that we take a really deep dive and look at how do we do that long term. And so a lot of work has gone into the research regarding how do we provide the best service. And I just appreciate the work of Chief Kirk Carpenter, who's going to come join us this evening. And he's going to share the work that's been done. You're going to share some statistics, and we're going to talk about how do we do that. And so I just want to commend our first responders, our firefighters, for the work that they do, the service they provide to our community, and we as a community want to look forward to how we can continue that in the best way possible. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Chief Kirk Carpenter, and thank you so much.
I too want to thank. I'm also going to take my mask off just because it's hard to hear me sometimes. So I do want to thank everybody that's here. I mean, everybody has important things going on, so to come here and spend time with us is valuable to us. About 18 months ago, the mayor approached us at the fire department and the leadership team and said, "Hey, we really need you to dive in and see what would be best for the fire department in the future. Come on in." And not just in financing, but our strategic goals. And one of the things she did want us to highlight on is how do we sustain that service that we provide for the community and keep it at the level that we currently enjoy. And so looking into it, this is nothing new to us. The mayor had known that this had been an effort that had occurred earlier in our history. And so we basically went back and revisited some of those efforts, and then from that decided that we really needed some someone from outside to look in and do an outside judgment on what are our options in moving forward. And so that's where we came into contact, and we hired Galena Consulting. Galena Consulting specializes in not just this, but other areas of looking into businesses and public entities and really finding out the pros and cons of different options for that entity. So after 18 months of using all the matrices that they could find, that's from the state and the county and taxing and revenues, and from the city, the fire department, they took all the data that they could find and they basically put it into one scenario, and they looked at what are the options that the city of Nampa and the fire department have for continuing forward into the future with their service. That culminated in September. It was slowed down a little bit by COVID, but for no accident, we were able to continue to provide information and really hone the workshop that was given to our city council and our leadership at the fire district, as well as the city leadership team. And that occurred on September 14th. From that workshop, we were really looking forward to giving more energy to this effort. And at the first council meeting of October, the council approved us to continue to look into this option. And then part of that was gathering our public's feedback. And so that's what we're here for today, is to give you an idea of why we looked into this, what it is, and the options that were found through the consultant. So really understanding why is it that we even approach this? What is it that the mayor was talking about it is so vital that we continue that high level of service to our community and our first response. So what we do know is the mayor's team has sent out surveys annually to find out what our community finds important. Not just important, but what they really see as the highest priority for our community. And what we see from those surveys is the fire department usually ranks very high with our citizens in the service that we provide. They value it. They do see it as one of the top 3 priorities in their idea of what should be funded. And they also have an expectation that they want that to continue. They find it very valuable. Whether it's through their own experience or through the experience of someone they know or through word, they know that we do a very good job in responding to our community. For us at the fire department, and then really for you to understand, when we speak of level of service, what we're speaking to is really our response time, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail on how we define that and why that's an important term for us. So there's a lot of little pieces to what we call response time, and response time for us is critical to how we can make a positive difference to an emergency event. So it's made up of many components. The first component is when our dispatch center receives the call. We like to assume that we're very efficient, and we give that opportunity to receive all that information and then alert the crews 60 seconds. We really want to limit our travel time from the station to a specific area to under 4 minutes. And then we also have the time it takes us to put on our protection gear, whether it's for fire or EMS. And we give ourselves 80 seconds for that. So we at the Nampa Fire Department in the city of Nampa have a goal time of 6 minutes and 20 seconds to get to the majority of our calls. That is our goal. And we get that from a national standard through the National Fire Protection Agency. They really took a lot of data and broke down that those are very specific times that we would like to meet to make the best opportunity at creating a positive outcome. Beyond that, when we're dealing with fire emergencies or larger emergencies that are very hazardous, we also have the goal of our other units arriving within 8 minutes. So when we go to a fire, we have that first arriving unit coming at 6 minutes and 20 seconds. We know that there's some things that they can complete as they arrive. You know, they make the plan, they're achieving their water supply so they can fight the fire. And in the next minute and 40 seconds, we need to start seeing other crews arrive so that we can make access and make a positive difference to the fire or whatever emergency that we're on scene of. For the fire side of things, whether it's residential or in our commercial buildings, we know that because of today and science, that the furnishings we have in our buildings are different than they were 40 years ago. And with the science that's been done, we do know that in between this time frame of 8 minutes to 10 minutes, there's a drastic change in how the conditions are within the building. And it goes from usually one room where it's contained within the walls of where this emergency has started or where the fire has started. And at that 8 minute to 10 minute mark, it becomes big enough that it then grows significantly and exponentially and becomes very dramatic. Oftentimes it's described as a flashover. If you watch the movies, it's what you see when you see what they call a backdraft. It's a significant event where the heat and the fuel combined equal a very tragic moment. Unfortunately, that's also about the same time that firefighters arrive. So we need to have the amount of firefighters on scene to combat that specific moment. If that's to occur, if we can't meet those time frames for our community, then we begin to get into areas where we no longer can protect the property as well as we could have if we could have been there before that event. The lives of our citizens or the occupants in those buildings become at much higher risk. And not only that, our firefighters that are entering to make a difference are at a much greater risk as well of being injured or even killed. So that's the reason for some of the response times for our fires. Now, most of the city leadership and a lot of our community know that we do respond on what we would call emergency medical calls. There's a lot of things included in that. That's everything from a sick person to an elderly call to a heart attack to a choking. So when we say emergency medical, it's a wide swath of calls and service that we provide for the community. And it does create about 65% of what we do. But what we do know, again, by science, is that around 4 minutes of not breathing. So if we have a community member that is dealing with an event where they are no longer breathing, and that can be a heart attack or they're choking, we do know around the 4 minute mark, the brain begins to deteriorate because of the lack of oxygen. And as we move further and further away from that 4-minute mark, we see a 10% increase in mortality. That means because of the time it takes us to get there, if we're deficient in that area, we're losing the opportunity to make a positive difference in our citizens' life and possibly save them. So every minute and every second counts when it comes to someone not breathing and our distance from them in achieving that goal of meeting a positive outcome. So this map is we are very proud of this map. This map takes a lot of work. There's a lot of data that goes into feeding what you can see on the screen right here. And what you see is you see a map of the community of Nampa. And when you see the different colors, you see the greens and the reds and the yellows, those are areas of where our stations are currently located. You can see they're strategically located throughout our community. We have one that's centrally located. We have on the outskirts around the city. And the color that you see there it represents the distance from the station that our crews can respond within our goal response time. So that means they can reach in that colored area within that goal response time of 6 minutes and 20 seconds. And those are areas that get to have the protection of that station that's in their area. You can also see that within that map, there's some gray areas. And that gray area, it represents the city boundaries or the city limits of the city of Nampa. So any of the gray that you can see are members of our community that are not currently covered by a fire station within our goal time frame. And you can especially notice it when we look at the bottom area here in the southwest. I don't know if this has a laser, sorry.
The big button.
Oh, that's not the button, the big button. Sorry, when you look down here in the southwest, there's a lot of gray in this area. And we know that. We've seen that area for some time. It's on our heat maps, it's red. It does point to an area of need. Our council is aware and supportive that this is a high priority in our community. And in fact, it's so high, if you look at this little dot right here where my laser is, that's the exact location where we've purchased land to build Station 6. And so we do know that is a highest priority. For our community that isn't aware, it has been 13 years since our last fire station opened in 2007, and that was Station 5, which was on the east side of our city. And you can see it does a very good job in covering the area, and it was well planned based on the data that we use. So we can look into the future based on the growth of Nampa and where we're heading with the population, and we can really predict well where it's best to put our next stations. So this slide is significant to the leadership of the fire department, and then as well as it is to council and the mayor. We know that the Nampa Fire Department responds to just short of 10,000 calls a year right now. But what we also know is in 2019, almost a third of those calls were outside of station coverage or outside of the area in which we could respond within the goal time of that 6 minutes and 20 seconds. And it's very alerting to us because each one of those tiny little red dots that's on that map is a community member or a citizen of our community that made a phone call that we couldn't reach in time. And if it was a significant emergency event or medical emergency for them, it's concerning because we lose the opportunity to make a positive difference because they're one of these red dots. It was because we were not able to reach them. So this is part of the why, and it continues as we move forward. Since we opened Station 5, at the time we opened Station 5, we had a pretty close goal of a pretty close time of 6:56 average response time, and this is the 90th percentile. That means 90% of the time we were making it to all of our calls in under 7 minutes. That's pretty close to our 6 minute and 20 second goal time. I mean, that's where we were shooting for. And you can see as growth occurred within the city and as populations grow, our response time grew as well. We went from that just under 7 minutes at 6:56 to now we're over 8 minutes to almost 8:20. That's over a minute and 20 seconds. And as we talked about it, every one of those seconds counts when we're dealing with our community. So today in 2019, our average response time at the 90th percentile, at 90% of the time, we do make it to our calls within 8 minutes and 17 seconds. We do that with everything that the city has graciously and the commission have graciously provided, and the hard work of our members to make sure that we're always ready and that we're trained and able to do that. Another reason that we need to look at what's going on, we at the fire department call it stacking up or doubling up calls. And what this means is at one time we have multiple emergencies going on in one specific district of the city. And an example I would give you is Station 2 is our busiest station in the city of Nampa. It runs on many, many calls a year, way over almost 3,000 calls a year. So it's not uncommon for them to be out on emergency call, whether that's fire or medical, and we'll receive a second call in their area. What that means is there's going to be a unit that comes from Station 5 or Station 4 or possibly Station 1 that needs to go cover that emergency. Beyond the extended response time that it takes to get there, it also then removes the one resource that was in the area, whether it was in 4 or 5. So now we have a whole district without a response vehicle or a fire apparatus within that area. When we're having stacked up calls over almost 4,000 times a year, that's a significant amount of time where we have community members that are unprotected. As the population grew, our call volume almost matches the percentages identically. From 2000 to 2020, the population of the city of Nampa has doubled, pretty close to exact. If you can see here, our call volume went from 4,400 to almost 10,000, so a little more than doubled. So as our population continues to grow, so does our call volume, or the amount of work each one of our stations continue to do. Now, if you can imagine, in 2007 was the last time we were able to construct a new station. So from the year of 2007, when we see that 6,700 calls for service till to now, we've seen almost a 35% increase in the work that our firefighters are being asked to do. And that isn't going to slow down. We know, we all see it every day. We watch as some amazing new businesses are coming to our community. We watch as growth is happening all around us, and people want to live here. They understand the amazing community that Nampa is. And if you look at the projections that are coming towards us and the community that we will be, we do know that we're going to continue to grow. And so we can expect that this is going to continue to be a growing concern. So in 2040, the prediction right now is there will be almost 200,000 people in the community of Nampa that the Nampa Fire Department will be serving for fire and EMS services. So the findings that we do know from their research is that with increased population and the geographic spread of a city, without any new stations equals increased calls and longer response times. And for us, that means about a minute every 6 years. With that increased response times comes an increased threat to the life and the property of the people that we serve in Nampa. And that is really what led us to the point in which we needed to find what is the best option moving forward. So for us, and if you talk to any of the firefighters that are either in the back of the room or across our community, for us, every second does matter. We understand the value of each moment. We understand the value of being ready for each second, and we train to a degree that we take that very seriously. So during emergency calls such as those cardiac arrests or strokes and fires and occupancies, every second matters. You would hear a slogan that says every minute matters, but for us, especially when we're talking about our community, the community of Nampa, it's the seconds that matter. The continued approval of growth in our city has taken us past a place in which we can continue to fund those needs of the fire department to where we can maintain the response times that we have currently. And there are areas throughout our community that are currently uncovered by the stations that would be able to meet them at that 6-minute and 20-second goal mark. So, Lena Consulting comes into the scene, and they really wanted to look at this from the city's aspect as to what should we use as our goals or our objectives to prove what would be the best thing to do. And so they kind of looked at it from the mayor and council's lens, and they said, if we were mayor and council, what would we want to measure this against? And so they said, if we were mayor and council, we would want to maintain the current response times that we have, because we don't want to get any worse. We know we are growing, and we want to be consistent and stabilize this. So how do we maintain the response times that we currently enjoy, and then fund and staff equipment, stations, and personnel as the growth occurs? So that was the first objective. How do we do this to where we can continue to be fiscally responsible to the community we serve? How do we do it with a net neutral or as low as an impact to our taxpayers that we can? How can we do it without a negative impact to the city budget? How can we do it without impacting every division that works for the city? How do we do it stabilize the resources of the fire department and the response of the resources of those to really not allow any decrease in both the experience of what we enjoy today and the quality of the care that the fire department gives to the residents and our businesses. And then lastly, ensure that there's quality governance over any decision that is made. So those are the objectives that Galena used in moving forward. We could go over all the data, we could go over all the numbers, and I know that some people may have those questions, and that's why we have the opportunity for the survey. If you have very specific needs of what information you would like, we're happy to answer those. But in the end, there was really only 3 solutions that Galena came to. And these are the 3 options that we as the fire department and the mayor and the city of Nampa's leadership teams were given as the ones that were available. Number 1, we do just accept that growth is happening, and it's happening so fast that we are just going to see a decrease in the level of service that we're able to provide the community. That's option number 1. Option number 2, the city commits to fund and maintain the current service level of the fire department. That means we're gonna be good with where we're at, and we're gonna commit to continue funding and maintaining that response time of that 8 minutes and 17 seconds that we see today. And number 3, the city and the district approve a consolidation from both entities into one district encompassing both the city and the rural fire, the fire protection district boundaries for the delivery of fire service. And we'll go into each option real quick. Option 1, the city continues our conservative funding trend, and it will reduce and a decrease in our service as growth occurs. We do know that if we continue as we have been in the past, that our response times and the risk to our community will increase. Future stations are further down the road. They're delayed to both insufficient collection of impact fees, just at the huge rate of cost increases to building, and also the available funding for the staffing for those new stations. Due to the continual increase to call volume, without the addition of new stations and personnel, we also have to look that we're going to have to really look into those emergency services or those non-emergency services that we provide, like our smoke detector programs or some of our public education programs that we are able to do now, but we would not be able to do anymore because we are becoming more and more overwhelmed with the amount of calls that our members are responding to. We do also know that without further stations and continuing in the route we are currently, Nampa Fire Department and the City of Nampa have the highest ISO rating in the state. We enjoy a rating of 2 that we just reestablished again. And we do know that without addition of new stations and personnel, we will see a lowering of that rating, which for our citizens and our businesses, that equates to an increase in insurance premiums. Option number 2. This option is an option of where the city commits to maintain our current level of service. We do know it's already below the recommended standard, but it's what we have and we want to maintain it. We don't want to go any further below the standard that we are now. If this was the decision that the council was to choose, we know that until growth subsides, all new revenues generated by the city would need to be dedicated to the Nampa Fire Department. That's all new revenues if we want to maintain the current service level. And we do know that this would limit the growth of any other department within the city. We all know that we are a full service city, so you can imagine that this is the least favorite of all other of my department head cohorts because it would limit any further growth for them. We also know that if there was a future cap on property tax at the legislative level at the state, and it was put in place, it would force the city of Nampa to go back to option 1. We would just have to continue funding the way that we have historically. So option number 2. Option number 3 was the option where the Nampa Fire Department and the Nampa Fire Protection District form a single entity, a taxing district responsible for delivering all the fire and EMS services to the community of Nampa and the fire district. This new district does have access to state funds that the city does not for the fire department. The new district is able to commit to both build, equip, and staff new stations as growth occurs in the model that was provided. The fire district would have a single focus priority of the fire and EMS services within the community. There would be an improved response time as new stations are built. We do see a decrease in response times every time a new station is built, and really the goal is to flatten out that line of where we're seeing only increase. The district would also be able to provide and sustain service for the city taxpayers at a net neutral cost. So consolidation, the fiscal impact analysis findings. What we did see through the analysis was the Nampa Fire District, should a consolidation takes place, can fund ongoing operations moving forward. They can fund new and ongoing staffing for all the new stations. We do have to consider that new staffing cannot be covered by impact fees. That's only for new buildings and new equipment. So we recognize that this is talking to the revenue from the property tax and other revenues will be able to afford the staffing for the new station. It is a sustainable funding option for all future department growth, and future fire stations and apparatus would be built via impact fees. We do know that the district can fund all those things with a net neutral tax impact to our city residents. We know that it has a small positive impact to the current city operating budget. It does eliminate any future burdens on the city's budgets, the competition from police or roads, all those other divisions where we always have to explain what's the most important thing right now. And I could tell you, if you look at the map where Station 6 sits, I would say the whole city, all of our leadership knows that is the highest priority for our community. And so taking that competition away for those funds and really having a focused revenue for the fire department is able to create a more efficient way for both the city and the district. And then it does, in the end, allow a cash reserves to cover any economic downturn. And in fact, in the models that were ran, we do see we could weather a significant 5 to 7 year downturn of the economy without any issues. The other part of if you remember the objectives, the other part was how do we make sure it has a good governance piece in place? And if you can imagine on the city's ownership part of that is how do we make sure that all citizens are represented equally within the commission? Currently, the commission operates on a 3-person commission divided by 3 different sub-districts within the fire protection district, and they're represented by population and area equally as closely as possible. And so if we take that same theory, if the annexation or the consolidation was to take place, we do know that the commission would move to a 5-commission board. And if you look at the map, you can see that new 5-commission sub-district map now is part of the city. And knowing that the city is equally represented in every one of those 5 sub-districts, they get to elect the fire commissioner that would be their representative from that sub-district. So just as you would elect a council member, now you would see elections for fire commissioners that would represent you in your sub-fire district. So why are we doing these town halls, and why is it important for us to outreach to our community? The city leadership, they need we and the city leadership need your feedback. The mayor, the city council, we need to make a decision in moving forward and how we're going to provide service to the community in Nampa. And we do believe that the voice of the community is highly important. And so we need to know what you think. We need to know when you listen to this presentation and you look into the idea of what we're talking about, which one of the options best suits your desire. And then and we need you to reach out after you watch this tonight or on the video. We want you to take the survey online on slido.com. You'll see it on the website. You can also take a printed survey here in the room as you are here. And those things will be gathered to the end of the month. And then we'll be able to provide our council and mayor a really good perspective of what our community desires when it comes to the fire response, fire and emergency response in the city of Nampa. So that's all for the presentation. I don't know if I kept it within I was a little bit longer than 20 minutes, but we're right there. So we're definitely open for any questions. And then I don't know if you want, when you want to cut off the video. So do I have any questions? I know almost everybody in the room, so in one form or another. So we want to thank everybody coming. Thank you, everybody. If you took the time to watch the full video, then I wish I had a code word you could put in your survey and we could send you a sticker or something. But we do appreciate you. Thank you for investing in your fire department and in the city, because we know time is of the essence. As we said, every second's precious, even the ones you just spent watching this video or in this room. So, yeah, no questions? All right, thank you.